You probably know someone who has thought about it, or maybe you've thought about it yourself. Leaving behind the stress, leaving behind the rising costs, leaving behind the pressure of life back home, and starting fresh somewhere in Southeast Asia. Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, Bali. At first glance, it feels like a reset button on life. Warm weather all year, cheap food, affordable rent, a slower pace of living, and a freedom that feels like it has disappeared back home. So you make the move. You sell what you own. You leave your job. You pack your life into a suitcase, and you start over in a completely different part of the world. And for a while, everything feels right. Life feels lighter, simpler, easier. But slowly, something starts to change. Not all at once. Not dramatically, but quietly. And over time, you may start to realize something unexpected. Going back home is no longer simple. Not emotionally, not financially, not practically. And that's where the feeling of being stuck begins. Not stuck in one place, but stuck between two worlds.
To understand this, you have to go back to why you made the move, because most people don't leave without a reason. Back home, life likely started to feel heavier. Rent rising faster than income, work becoming more demanding, savings not stretching the way they used to. Retirement feeling further away instead of closer. And then Southeast Asia enters the picture. Suddenly, life feels possible again. You can live comfortably without constant financial pressure. You can enjoy daily life instead of just surviving it. You can slow everything down, and for a while it works exactly as expected. But life abroad doesn't stay in that early phase forever, it evolves. And the shift is so gradual that you don't even notice it happening at first.
Online, expat life looks effortless. Beach cafes, infinity pools, laptop freedom, live anywhere lifestyle videos. And those moments are real, but they are only part of the story. Because what you don't always see is what happens once the novelty fades. Visa renewals, rising costs, healthcare concerns, loneliness that appears slowly over time, and uncertainty about what the future actually looks like. At first, none of this feels heavy, because everything is still new, but eventually, new becomes normal. And normal is where reality begins to show itself. And once that happens, decisions start to become long-term without you fully realizing it.
At some point, life abroad stops feeling temporary. It becomes your new reality. So you sell your home, you sell your car, you cash out savings, you cut financial ties, and it feels like freedom. No mortgage, no debt, no obligations waiting back home. But what's actually happening is more serious than it feels in the moment. You are removing your safety net. And once that safety net is gone, life becomes harder to reverse. Because years later, when housing prices back home have increased significantly, returning is no longer simple, even if you want to. Because going back is not just relocation, it is rebuilding an entire financial life in a place that has moved on without you. And that realization slowly changes how you see everything.
When you first arrive in Southeast Asia, everyday life can feel surprisingly affordable. And compared to back home, it often genuinely is. A beachfront condo that would cost a fortune back home suddenly feels within reach. A dinner out every night costs less than a quick lunch in many Western cities. Ride-sharing, cafes, weekend trips, and everyday comforts no longer feel like luxury expenses. But something subtle starts to happen when you arrive with a large lump sum from selling your assets. It creates a strong feeling of financial freedom, and that feeling quietly changes your behavior over time. You don't notice it at first. A slightly better apartment starts to feel reasonable. Eating out every day becomes normal. Weekend trips and short getaways turn into routine experiences. And because life feels lighter and more relaxed, spending naturally extends into lifestyle choices you might not have considered as often back home. Going out for drinks and bars becomes part of the weekly rhythm. Nightlife starts to feel easy and accessible instead of occasional. Even massages, spa treatments, and everyday comfort services feel normal because the prices seem low compared to what you would pay elsewhere. Comfort spending slowly blends into everyday life without feeling like a big decision. And because everything still feels cheaper than home, there is rarely a strong sense of pressure to closely control spending. It feels sustainable, at least in the beginning. And slowly, lifestyle inflation begins. Not through one big decision, but through many small ones. Over time, that lump sum starts to shrink. Until one day, it is no longer your foundation. Now your main support becomes something else: a pension, a retirement income, a fixed monthly amount. And in Southeast Asia, around $2,000 a month can still provide a comfortable life. It can cover rent, food, transport, a modest but good lifestyle. But then reality creates a difficult contrast. Because if life changes, if family needs you, if health changes, or if you decide to return home, that same $2,000 doesn't stretch the same way anymore. Back home, it may not even cover rent, utilities, and basic living costs. So you end up in a strange position. Life abroad still works, but life back home no longer does. And that's where the feeling quietly begins. Not trapped in one country, but stuck between two versions of life that no longer match.
And this is where things become even more complicated, because most people assume returning home is simple. If it doesn't work, just go back. But once you've lived abroad for years, that idea stops reflecting reality, because going back is not a reset, it is a rebuild. Housing is one of the biggest shocks. Prices may have doubled or tripled, rent is high, requirements are strict, competition is intense, then comes work. After years abroad, restarting a career is not easy. Skills may feel outdated, industries may have changed, employers may question gaps or relocation history. Then comes daily life. Groceries, transport, insurance, everything feels expensive again. And emotionally, home is not always the same anymore. Friends have moved on. Life has changed. Familiar routines don't fully exist in the same way. And then there is the practical side. Banking systems, healthcare access, housing applications, documentation, financial setup. It's not just moving, it's rebuilding life from zero. And that is why even when you want to go back, you hesitate.
And over time, another layer enters the picture: aging. Because when you first move abroad, everything is about lifestyle. But later, priorities shift. Health becomes more important. Stability becomes more important. Long-term planning becomes essential. And new questions start to appear. What happens if I get sick here? What happens if I need long-term care? What happens if I can no longer travel easily? At that point, home feels emotionally safer, but not always financially possible anymore. And that creates a quiet tension that grows over time.
At first, everything feels exciting. New places, new experiences, new freedom. But eventually, life becomes routine again, and distance starts to show its effects. People back home continue their lives, family milestones happen without you, friendships slowly shift over time. Even in a beautiful place, a sense of separation can grow quietly, because eventually, lifestyle alone is not enough. You need connection, familiarity, belonging, and not everyone is able to rebuild that long-term.
And yet, many people still choose to stay. Because despite everything, life in Southeast Asia still offers something meaningful. Less stress, lower costs, more freedom in daily life, a slower rhythm. But there is another layer to this reality. As we mentioned earlier, even if you reach a point where you want to go back, it is often no longer simple. In many cases, returning home is no longer financially or practically realistic. Not because you are not allowed to go back, but because rebuilding life there has become too expensive, too uncertain, or too difficult to restart. So you may find yourself in a position where staying abroad feels like the only workable option left. Not because it is perfect, but because going back no longer fits the reality you are in. And that is what makes this situation so complex. It is not about choosing between two equal options. It is about managing between two lives that no longer align the way they once did.
So what does all of this really mean? And more importantly, what should you do if you are considering this kind of life? The biggest lesson is simple. You are not just moving to another country, you are restructuring your entire life. And if you want to avoid feeling stuck later, you need to think in terms of flexibility, not just freedom. Here is what that looks like in real life. Don't rush major financial decisions. Test long-term living before fully committing. Don't treat all your assets as lifestyle money. If you sell property or investments, protect a portion for long-term security. Always plan for return, not just departure. Many people underestimate how expensive going back can be. Keep financial ties active at home. Banking, credit, and systems matter more than expected later. Plan early for healthcare and aging, not just where you are now, but where you may end up. Build income stability, not just savings dependence, because savings eventually shrink. Income creates options, and most importantly, think long-term. Because the first year abroad feels like freedom, but year 10 feels very different, and the people who navigate it best are not the ones who rush in, but the ones who stay flexible enough to adapt when life changes.
Southeast Asia will continue to attract people searching for a better life. And for many, it delivers exactly that. But for others, over time, the experience becomes more complicated than expected. Not because the dream was wrong, but because life moves forward. Money changes, health changes, relationships change. And slowly, the idea of home becomes less about geography and more about a decision you have to keep making. Now, the real question is this. If you had the chance, would you still make the move? And if you did, how would you make sure you always stay free to choose your next step? Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the related video on your screen for more fascinating content. Explore our channel for even more exciting videos. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to GlobeGazette for more incredible stories. Your support means everything to us. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.